What if the most powerful healing drinks on the planet weren't invented in a laboratory, bottled in a pharmaceutical facility, or sold to you at a premium by a wellness brand, but were poured into clay vessels thousands of years ago by people who understood the human body in ways modern medicine is only now beginning to verify? Most people have no idea that while we're spending hundreds of dollars every month on supplements, protein powders, detox programs, and prescription medications, the Bible was already prescribing specific drinks that modern science is now proving can fight bacterial infection, reverse systemic inflammation, balance blood sugar, and protect your heart at the cellular level. These preparations are documented in Egyptian medical papyri dating back to 1550 BC. They're referenced in thousands of cuneiform records from ancient Assyria, and researchers are spending millions of dollars in clinical trials confirming what ancient people observed with their own eyes, generation after generation. These aren't just religious symbols or ancient folklore. They are functional medicines with clinically verified mechanisms of action, and the peer-reviewed research behind them is extraordinary. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 of them, ranked from remarkably effective to absolutely life-transforming. Each one comes with a scripture anchor, the specific bioactive compound doing the work inside your body, and the exact traditional preparation the ancient world used. Because preparation method is everything with these drinks, and getting it wrong means getting nothing. Stick around because number 6 on this list was the standard daily drink of Roman legions, soldiers who marched thousands of miles and needed to stay healthy in some of the most unsanitary conditions imaginable. And researchers are now discovering it may be one of the most powerful blood sugar regulators ever clinically tested. A single 2-teaspoon dose has been shown to reduce post-meal glucose by up to 31%. And number 10, the one that closes this list, comes straight from Ezekiel's vision of the healing trees whose leaves never wither. Modern science has now identified 12 distinct clinical benefits locked inside this one ancient brew, including antiviral action against herpes, neuroprotection against Alzheimer's, and a compound that researchers are discovering may outperform some blood pressure medications without a single side effect. If you want ancient wisdom backed by peer-reviewed science, delivered straight to you every week, hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss what's coming. Drink number 1, Hyssop Cleansing Drink. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Psalm 51:7. Let's begin with what most people completely miss about hyssop. The hyssop of the Bible is not the European Hyssopus officinalis you find in a Western herb garden. Modern botanical and philological research has identified it as Origanum syriacum, Syrian oregano, a fundamentally different plant with a fundamentally more powerful medicinal profile. It played a central role in Levitical purification rituals, the Passover threshold anointing in Exodus 12, and the crucifixion itself, where a sponge soaked in sour wine was lifted to Jesus on a branch of this plant. The symbolism was never arbitrary. It was built on centuries of observed pharmacological reality. Carvacrol and thymol, the primary volatile monoterpenes in Origanum syriacum, are among the most potent natural antimicrobials ever identified. A 2007 study demonstrated that hyssop extract has direct virucidal activity against acyclovir-resistant strains of herpes simplex virus type 1. A 2014 animal study confirmed that hyssop extract significantly modulates the inflammatory markers responsible for airway remodeling and hyperresponsiveness, and its rosmarinic acid content provides additional antioxidant and antispasmodic protection throughout the respiratory tract. Here is the preparation detail that almost everyone gets wrong. These volatile compounds are destroyed by heat. Traditional Levantine preparation required a cold steep, not a boil. Traditional preparation: place 1 tablespoon of dried Origanum syriacum leaves in 2 cups of cold water and steep for 8 full hours. Overnight works perfectly. In the morning, warm the liquid very gently, never boil it. Strain, add a tablespoon of raw honey, and finish with a squeeze of fresh lemon. Drink 1 cup in the morning and 1 in the evening for 7 to 10 days, during illness or at the change of seasons. This drink was used continuously throughout the Levant for respiratory infection, bronchial congestion, and what ancient practitioners called ritual impurity, which modern science now recognizes as systemic inflammatory dysregulation. Drink number 2, frankincense elixir. They presented to him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Matthew 2, verse 11. What the Magi brought to the newborn Jesus was not simply a symbolic gesture of honor. It was, among other things, one of the most potent anti-inflammatory substances ever studied by modern pharmacology. For centuries, the frankincense offering was treated as purely ceremonial. Then researchers began isolating the active compounds in Boswellia sacra resin and found something that stopped the pharmaceutical world in its tracks. Boswellic acids, specifically the compound known as ACBA, or 3-O-acetyl-11 keto-beta-boswellic acid, are highly selective inhibitors of 5-lipoxygenase, the specific enzyme that synthesizes pro-inflammatory leukotrienes. Unlike NSAIDs, which target cyclooxygenase enzymes and carry significant gastrointestinal risk, boswellic acids block the 5-LOX pathway cleanly, without the side effects. Clinical trials have demonstrated that Boswellia extract significantly reduces joint pain and stiffness in osteoarthritis patients within 120 days of treatment. Separate trials have shown it helps maintain clinical remission in patients with ulcerative colitis and irritable bowel syndrome. Researchers are now discovering it may represent one of the most elegant natural anti-inflammatory mechanisms ever identified. The traditional preparation relied on water's ability to dissolve the gum component of the resin, approximately 30 to 40% of the raw material, forming a natural mucilage that suspends the bioactive boswellic acids in a stable emulsion the gut can absorb. Traditional preparation. Take a small piece of food-grade Boswellia resin, roughly the size of a pea, and place it in a cup of room temperature or cold water overnight, 6 to 8 hours minimum. The resin will soften and release its water-soluble compounds into a milky, slightly translucent liquid. Drink it in the morning on an empty stomach. For enhanced effect, traditional Levantine healers combined 1 tablespoon of the resin extract with half a teaspoon of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of ground ginger, simmered gently for 5 minutes, then sweetened with raw honey. The Magi understood the value of what they carried. What they brought was not just ceremonial gold, it was medicine. Drink number 3. Myrrh water infusion. They offered him wine mixed with myrrh. Mark 15:23. Myrrh appears at the beginning of Jesus' life and at the end, brought as a gift at his birth, offered in wine at his crucifixion, used by Nicodemus in his burial preparation. In every instance, myrrh is functioning as medicine, as it had for over 3,000 years across Egypt, Israel, Greece, and the wider ancient world. The Tel al-Amarna letters, dating to the 14th century BCE, record specific diplomatic requests for healing myrrh. Egyptian medical papyri document its use for canker sores, gingivitis, sore throats, and gastric ulcers. The furanose esquiterpenes in Commiphora Myrrh resin operate through several simultaneous pathways. When prepared as a combined water extract with frankincense, which ancient healers used together precisely because they work synergistically, myrrh downregulates TRPV1 channels on sensory neurons, which directly alleviates neuropathic pain and thermal hypersensitivity. Studies have confirmed its broad-spectrum antibacterial and antifungal activity. Animal model research has demonstrated dose-dependent analgesic effects comparable to pharmaceutical pain intervention, alongside significant reduction in LDL cholesterol and normalization of blood lipid profiles. The bitterness you taste when you drink myrrh water is not incidental. Bitter compounds stimulate digestive enzyme production and bile flow. The bitterness was the point. Traditional preparation. Use a very small piece of food-grade myrrh resin. Start conservatively, as this is a potent plant medicine. Steep in 2 cups of hot water for 20 minutes. Strain and allow to cool slightly. Add raw honey to temper the bitterness. Alternatively, Use a few drops of a reputable food-grade myrrh tincture in warm water. Drink before meals for digestive and antimicrobial benefit, or use as a morning oral rinse before swallowing to target gum inflammation and oral bacteria. The ancient world used it because it worked. Every culture that encountered it, Egyptian, Israelite, Greek, Roman, adopted it independently. Drink number 4. Pomegranate Elixir, the cardiovascular guardian. Your temples are like a half of a pomegranate. Song of Solomon 6:7. There were 200 carved pomegranates on the pillars of Solomon's temple. This was not decoration for its own sake. The pomegranate was a statement about what that fruit meant, about abundance, restoration, and the protection of life. And modern antioxidant science is discovering exactly why civilizations from Persia to Israel elevated this fruit to sacred status. Punicalagins, the dominant polyphenols in pomegranate juice, break down in the gut into urolithins, compounds that have shown remarkable anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer effects in research. But the cardiovascular science is where it becomes stunning. A systematic review and meta-analysis of 8 randomized controlled trials demonstrated that pomegranate juice consumption significantly reduces systolic blood pressure by a weighted mean difference of 4.96 mm of mercury and diastolic pressure by 2.01 mm of mercury. A 2024 meta-analysis found even greater reductions in adults with elevated baseline blood pressure. The mechanism is clean. Pomegranate juice acts as a natural inhibitor of angiotensin-converting enzyme, the same pathway targeted by an entire class of pharmaceutical antihypertensives. Studies have also confirmed that pomegranate polyphenols increase the activity of paraoxonase 1, an enzyme that breaks down the oxidized lipids that accumulate in arterial walls and trigger atherosclerosis. And a 28-day clinical trial demonstrated that a standardized pomegranate extract significantly reduces morning cortisol and the cortisol-to-cortisone ratio, directly modulating the body's physiological stress response. Traditional preparation: press fresh, dark-skinned pomegranate seeds, wonderful, black, or any deeply pigmented variety, without straining out the skin contact. Drink immediately or within 24 hours while the volatile polyphenols are still active. Store-bought pomegranate juice works as a substitute, but looks specifically for varieties with no added sugar and no juice concentrate. The fresh preparation is worth the effort. Persian and Islamic traditional medicine prescribed it daily for cardiovascular, respiratory, and metabolic conditions. The temple's architects chose this fruit to adorn the house of God. The science now tells us they chose wisely. Drink number 5: Goat's Milk Tonic, the probiotic of the Promised Land. You will have plenty of goat's milk to feed you, food for your household, and nourishment for your maidservants. Proverbs 27:27. The land of promise flowed with milk. But not the milk in your refrigerator. The milk of the ancient Near East was almost exclusively goat's milk, a fundamentally different biological substance that the human gut handles in a fundamentally different way, and that modern clinical research has confirmed offers therapeutic properties that pasteurized, homogenized, industrial cow's milk simply cannot replicate. Goat's milk contains a unique profile of short and medium-chain fatty acids, including caprylic acid, with documented antimicrobial and antifungal properties, alongside milk fat globule membrane, MFGM, which research has shown helps preserve gut barrier integrity and support cognitive and immune development. The structural difference that matters most is in the casein protein. Due to genetic polymorphisms in the alpha-AS1 casein gene, goat's milk forms a softer, more fragile curd in the stomach, allowing gastric enzymes to digest the protein matrix more rapidly and avoid the inflammatory digestive response that so many people associate with dairy. The digestion of goat's milk protein releases casein phosphopeptides that bind to calcium and iron in the small intestine, keeping them soluble and dramatically increasing their absorption. Clinical studies have confirmed that goat's milk consumption improves cognitive scores in dementia patients. Animal model research has demonstrated it protects against brain aging and accelerates recovery from iron deficiency anemia. Combined with raw honey, you have a drink that is simultaneously probiotic, prebiotic, antimicrobial, mineral-rich, and deeply nourishing. Traditional preparation. Warm fresh, traditionally sourced goat's milk gently. Never boil it. Stir in 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered honey. Drink warm in the morning as a recovery tonic, or before bed as a mineralizing, calming nightcap. The inhabitants of the Promised Land drank this as a daily staple, a morning ritual, and a restorative during illness. The probiotic and prebiotic partnership of goat's milk and raw honey is the oldest gut health protocol on Earth. Drink number 6, vinegar tonic. They gave him vinegar to drink. Matthew 27 verse 48. Here we arrive at the drink I teased at the beginning of this video. The vinegar offered to Jesus at the crucifixion is almost always read as an act of cruelty. But it wasn't. Posca, grape vinegar diluted with water, was the standard daily drink of Roman legions. Hardened soldiers who marched campaigns of thousands of miles, who needed to stay healthy in conditions without clean water infrastructure, chose this drink. And now we know precisely why. At the molecular level, that decision was correct. The active compound is acetic acid. When consumed before or during a carbohydrate-rich meal, acetic acid delays gastric emptying, slowing the conversion of complex starches into simple sugars and flattening the postprandial glucose curve. At the cellular level, it increases glucose uptake in skeletal muscle by upregulating insulin action through AMP activation. A systematic review and meta-analysis of clinical trials confirmed that vinegar consumption significantly reduces the postprandial glucose area under the curve, standardized mean difference of -0.60, and the postprandial insulin area under the curve with an even larger effect size of -1.30. A randomized crossover trial showed that a 10-gram dose, just 2 teaspoons, of liquid vinegar consumed at mealtime reduces post-meal glucose excursion by up to 31%. And here is a critical detail that ancient people discovered through pure field observation long before anyone understood the biochemistry. This effect is completely dependent on liquid delivery. A clinical comparison of liquid vinegar versus commercial vinegar tablets, even tablets with higher acetic acid content, showed that liquid vinegar reduced postprandial glucose by 31%, while the tablets had zero therapeutic effect. The form matters. The preparation matters. It always has. Traditional preparation. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the kind with the mother still intact, to a full glass of water. Drink it immediately before your largest meal of the day. If the taste is sharp, add a small amount of raw honey. That combination has been used medically for thousands of years and delivers the antimicrobial benefits of both simultaneously. The Roman legions who built the ancient world weren't drinking this for flavor. They were drinking it because it kept them functional in conditions that killed other men. The science has now given us the mechanism. The soldiers had the outcome. They were right. Drink number 7, barley water. There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves. John 6:9. Barley was the grain of ordinary people. When Jesus fed 5,000, the loaves were barley, the food of laborers, soldiers, and the poor. And it turns out that ordinary people were consuming one of the most therapeutically powerful grain preparations ever analyzed by nutritional science. Beta-glucans, the soluble fiber concentrated in the barley kernel at between 5 and 10% by weight, are so convincingly proven to lower cholesterol and stabilize blood sugar that the FDA permits a health claim on food products containing them. But the mechanism goes deeper than most people know. Once ingested, high molecular weight beta-glucans are fermented by the anaerobic microbiota of the colon, producing a saccharolytic shift in gut metabolism that dramatically increases short-chain fatty acid concentrations, acetate, propionate, and butyrate, which act as the primary fuel for colonocytes. These SCFAs then stimulate the mucosal immune system by enhancing immunoglobulin A secretion and upregulating the anti-inflammatory cytokine interleukin-10. Clinical trials have shown barley beta-glucan consumption significantly lowers circulating levels of p-cresyl sulfate, a uremic toxin associated with cardiovascular risk, and improves flow-mediated dilation, a direct measure of vascular endothelial function. Barley beta-glucan also blocks key glucose transporters, specifically SGLT1 and GLUT2, in the small intestine, attenuating post-meal blood sugar spikes at the absorption level itself. Traditional preparation. Simmer 1 cup of whole pearl barley in 4 cups of water for 1 full hour. Strain off the liquid, add a squeeze of lemon and a touch of raw honey if desired. Drink warm or cool throughout the day. This preparation was used throughout the ancient Levant for kidney support, fever recovery, and gastrointestinal distress. Pre-pharmaceutical hospitals served barley water to recovering patients as a matter of clinical routine. The grain of the poor was the medicine of the wise, and the beta-glucan science tells us exactly why. Drink number 8, cumin water. You tithe mint and dill and cumin, Matthew 23:23. Cumin is the only spice on this list specifically named by Jesus. And the fact that it was being tithed, offered as a percentage of its value to God, tells you precisely how prized it was in the ancient world. You tithe things of genuine worth. Cumin was worth tithing. Cuminaldehyde, the primary bioactive molecule in Cuminum cyminum, has been shown in a 2024 animal study to provide up to 80% protection from episodic diarrhea at doses of 10 to 20 milligrams kg. The mechanism is elegant. Cuminaldehyde activates ATP-dependent potassium channels and selectively inhibits voltage-gated calcium channels in intestinal smooth muscle, directly preventing the spasms that produce cramping and urgency. A 4-week clinical trial in patients with irritable bowel syndrome demonstrated that cumin extract reduced severe abdominal pain from 28% of patients to 0, and reduced severe bloating from 54% of patients to 0. It also normalized stool consistency in both diarrhea-dominant and constipation-dominant patterns. And in a 2026 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled pilot study, daily intake of cuminaldehyde-rich cumin essential oil significantly improved psychomotor speed and reaction time in healthy older adults, confirming that its benefits extend well beyond the digestive tract. Traditional preparation. Lightly toast 1 teaspoon of whole cumin seeds in a dry pan until fragrant. 30 seconds is enough. Add to 2 cups of boiling water and steep for 10 minutes. Strain and drink warm, especially after a heavy meal or at the first sign of digestive discomfort. Add a pinch of salt and a squeeze of lemon to brighten the flavor. This drink was used daily across the ancient Near East for flatulence, colic, and acute digestive distress. Ancient people tithed it because it earned its value. Modern clinical trials have confirmed exactly what they observed. Drink number 9, olive leaf tea. Its fruit will be for food, and its leaf for healing. Ezekiel 47:12. The olive tree appears over 500 times in Scripture. Its oil anointed kings. Its branches symbolized peace. But what the ancient world prized even more than the oil, what Levantine folk medicine reached for when illness came, were the leaves. And those leaves contain one of the most pharmacologically versatile compounds ever identified in a plant. Oleuropein, the primary sequaridoid glucoside in olive leaves, operates through 12 distinct clinical mechanisms that have been individually verified in peer-reviewed research. It prevents atherosclerotic plaque formation by inhibiting LDL oxidation while simultaneously increasing HDL cholesterol. It relaxes vascular smooth muscle to reduce systolic blood pressure, confirmed in a 2017 human randomized controlled trial. It decreases fasting plasma insulin to stabilize glycemic control in diabetic patients. It displays direct antiviral activity against both HSV1 and HSV2. It stimulates phagocytosis to enhance immune response against bacterial and viral infections. It inhibits the growth of Candida albicans, the fungus responsible for systemic yeast infections. It reduces the neuroinflammation and oxidative stress implicated in Alzheimer's disease. It promotes human dermal papilla cell activity to support hair follicle health. It inhibits cancer cell proliferation and promotes apoptosis across multiple cancer cell lines. This is one compound in one leaf from one tree mentioned 500 times in the most widely read book in human history. Traditional preparation. Steep 1 teaspoon of dried olive leaves in just boiled water for 15 minutes. Strain and drink. The taste is slightly bitter and earthy, which, as we've now established, is precisely what therapeutic potency tastes like. Drink 2 to 3 cups daily at the onset of illness or as a regular immune maintenance protocol. Important note: olive leaf tea has a natural blood-thinning effect and can interact with blood pressure, diabetes, and anticoagulant medications. Speak with your doctor before using it, alongside any current prescriptions. Ezekiel saw this coming. The leaves were never just poetic imagery. They were a pharmacopoeia. Drink number 10, medicated grape wine. The ancient solvent of healing, final climax. Use a little wine for your stomach's sake and your frequent ailments. 1 Timothy 5:23. We close where Paul closed, with the most direct medicinal prescription in all of the New Testament epistles. Not a spiritual exhortation, not a metaphor. A clinical instruction given to a sick man for the sake of his stomach. Paul doesn't suggest prayer alone. He prescribes wine. And what researchers have discovered about why wine worked in the ancient world as a healing medium, not just as a beverage, will completely transform how you understand every medicinal preparation in this video. The wine of the ancient Near East was not a recreational drink. Archaeological organic residue analysis of wine jars from the Canaanite palace at Tel Kabri, dating to approximately 1900 to 1600 BCE, revealed that wines were systematically infused with honey, storax resin, terebinth resin, cedar oil, cyperus, and juniper. At Tel Dor, Phoenician wine flasks contained cinnamon residues. These weren't flavor enhancements. Ethanol is an exceptionally efficient solvent, a menstruum, for extracting lipophilic plant resins and essential oils. Resins like frankincense and myrrh are poorly soluble in water, but dissolve readily in a wine base, creating bioavailable preparations that water infusions simply cannot replicate. Boswellic acids, furanosesquiterpenes, and terpene compounds that only partially extract into water will fully dissolve into a wine medium, dramatically increasing their therapeutic concentration in the final preparation. Ancient pharmacopoeias used medicated wine not because they lacked alternatives, but because they had discovered, through generations of empirical observation, that it worked better. Modern in vitro molecular extraction studies have now confirmed the exact mechanism. Ethanol-mediated dissolution of non-polar plant resin matrices creates quantitatively superior bioavailability of the active terpene compounds. Moderate consumption of red wine also delivers resveratrol and quercetin, polyphenols extracted from grape skins during fermentation, that preserve endothelial function, reduce atherosclerotic plaque formation, and have been associated in population studies with reduced risk of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. Traditional preparation. 1 small cup of red wine, unfiltered, naturally produced, consumed with food and in moderation. For the full medicinal preparation that the ancient world used, steep a small piece of frankincense resin and a small piece of myrrh resin in a glass of red wine overnight. The ethanol will dissolve the resin compounds that water cannot reach. Strain in the morning. Consume the small cup with your first meal. This is not a social drink. It is the delivery vehicle that made the other medicines on this list work at full potency. Paul understood value. He told Timothy to use it purposefully, sparingly, as medicine. The science has now caught up to exactly why that instruction was correct. 10 drinks, thousands of years of use, millennia of accumulated wisdom that we nearly discarded entirely in the rush to replace everything ancient with something manufactured, patented, and sold back to us at markup. The active compounds in these preparations, from the boswellic acids of frankincense and the punicalagins of pomegranate, to the acetic acid of vinegar and the beta-glucans of barley, interact with human cellular pathways in highly specific, clinically verifiable ways that researchers are still documenting in peer-reviewed journals right now, in 2024 and 2025. These formulas were not guesses. They were the product of generations of careful, direct human observation, refined over centuries and written into the most enduring literature in human history because they worked. Before I let you go, I need to say this clearly. Quality matters enormously with every single drink on this list. The difference between raw, unfiltered honey with the glucose oxidase enzyme intact and commercially pasteurized honey heated past 45 degrees Celsius isn't a small difference. It's the difference between a living antimicrobial preparation and warm sugar water. The difference between food-grade Boswellia sacra resin from a reputable supplier and a synthetic frankincense-scented product is the difference between Akbar, the anti-inflammatory compound that passed clinical trials, and a pleasant smell. The difference between liquid apple cider vinegar with the mother intact and commercial vinegar tablets is 31% glucose reduction versus 0. That last one is from a published clinical trial. The form of delivery is part of the medicine. The sourcing is part of the medicine. The preparation temperature is part of the medicine. I've linked the specific sources I trust in the description below. Please use them. The ancient world got the outcomes because they got the inputs right. Drop a comment right now and tell me which of these 10 drinks you're going to make first. I read every single one. And if this list surprised you, if the idea that Roman soldiers were drinking a clinically verified blood sugar regulator, or that the gift the Magi brought to Jesus is now being studied as a pharmaceutical-grade anti-inflammatory, hits differently after seeing the science behind it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now and ring the bell. We're here every week, and we are just